A survey may be conducted using one of two approaches: taking a census, or selecting a sample, or in other words, sampling. It is important to note that whether a sample or census is used, both provide information that can be used to draw conclusions about the whole population. Census method deals with investigation of an entire population. It is a study of every unit, everyone or everything in a population. It is known as a complete enumeration, which means a complete count. Imagine you work as a researcher in a certain organization and you want to conduct a survey. Your organization is composed of 12 people. In a census method, you are going to collect data from all the 12 members of the organization. This is what we refer to as the census method. Each method of studying a population comes with its merits and demerits. Let's look at the merits and demerits of census method. One advantage of the census method is that there is no sampling error. Conducting a census ensures that every member of the population is included in the study, thereby eliminating the possibility of sampling error. This means that the data collected accurately represents the entire population without any risk of bias from sampling. A census provides more detailed data. Because a census collects data from every member of the population, it can provide granular information on various demographic, socioeconomic, and other characteristics. Another advantage of the census method is that collected data can be used for future studies. Census data serves as a baseline for future studies by providing reliable information about the demographic, social, and economic characteristics of a population at a specific point in time. The disadvantages of the census method include: conducting a census is costly. Conducting a census indeed entails significant costs, and these expenses stem from various aspects of the data collection process. Census method is time-consuming. Census method is often characterized by its time-consuming nature, primarily due to the comprehensive and exhaustive approach to data collection. It may also be difficult to enumerate the whole population within the available time frame. The time required for conducting face-to-face interviews, administering questionnaires, or verifying information can prolong the data collection process, especially in areas with low respondent cooperation or high refusal rates. On the other hand, sampling is the process of selecting a subset of a population. It is a small portion of a population selected for observation and analysis. It involves choosing a sample from the population of interest in order to make inferences about the entire population. Sampling methods vary depending on the research goals, the characteristics of the population, and practical considerations such as time and resources. An example of sampling is when a researcher wants to study the eating habits of employees in a certain company. Instead of surveying every employee in the organization, which would be impractical and time-consuming, the researcher selects a sample of employees. This sample represents a smaller subset of the entire population of employees. By studying this sample, the researcher can make inferences about the eating habits of employees as a whole, without needing to survey every single individual. In general, sampling methods can be divided into two types: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling is a sampling technique in which a sample from a larger population are chosen using the theory of probability. For example, assuming this is our study population, and it has 1,000 members, each of these members will have 1/1000 chances of being selected to be a part of the sample. It gets rid of bias in the population and gives a fair chance to all members to be included in the sample. The major types of probability sampling techniques include simple random sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified random sampling. Non-probability sampling is a method of selecting a sample from the population using a non-random method. Examples of non-probability sampling methods include convenience sampling, purposive sampling, quota sampling, snowball sampling. It is important to note that the sampling method comes with its merits and demerits. Let's look into the advantages and disadvantages of the sampling method. The first advantage of the sampling method is that it is not costly. This is because sampling allows researchers to gather data from a subset of the population, reducing the resources required for data collection, analysis, and processing. The sampling method is not time-consuming. By focusing data collection efforts on a subset of the population, researchers can gather information more quickly than if they were to survey or observe every individual in the entire population. The sample can be a good representative of the population if a good sampling method is used. By using techniques such as random sampling, stratified sampling, or cluster sampling, researchers can minimize biases and ensure that each member of the population has an equal chance of being included in the sample. The disadvantages of the sampling method include scope of biasness. Bias refers to inaccuracies introduced into the sampling process, which can skew the results and lead to misleading conclusions. The presence of bias in sampling can undermine the validity and reliability of research findings. Another disadvantage of the sampling method is that sometimes there is difficulty in selecting a true representative sample. Despite efforts to employ random sampling or other representative techniques, it can be difficult to ensure that the sample accurately reflects the diversity and characteristics of the entire population. At times, it may be difficult to enumerate the entire population within the available time frame. This issue arises particularly when dealing with large or dynamic populations, where it may be impractical or impossible to compile a complete list of all individuals or elements within the population.